It's that time of the week again. And for edition MASL Insider, telling you stories and getting to know the players and now staff that make up our beautiful sport of indoor soccer. My name is Christian Filliman. My friends call me Philly. We're friends at this point. I'd hope so at the very least. So y'all can call me Philly. Now, normally on this show, we interview players that operate on the turf. But today, we are doing something a bit different. We're still chatting with a player, but not in the traditional sense. This player that we are talking to today is a big part, though, of MASL from a production and content creation perspective. Our guest is an Emmy award-winning producer with over 20 years worth of experience operating in sports media. His employers have been some familiar names. You might have heard of them, like, the NHL Network, MLS, Major League Baseball, NBC Washington. He's even aided in the production of Beijing Gold for the Olympics. Our fingers are crossed, though, that he gets the Emmy nod for his work with Ryan Sigich on the controversial MASL show Under Review. You may know him on the internet as Hey Yo Phil, but his real name is Phil Levanco. Phil, welcome to MASL Insider.
Do you know the reference of Hey Yo Phil?
No, not exactly. Why don't we have that as the first question?
So you and I are wrestling fans, right? I don't think I'm sharing any state secrets. One of my favorite wrestlers growing up, Razor Ramon, is the first thing that come out of his mouth.
Hey yo.
Hey yo. And that's where that's Hey Yo Phil.
I love it. Now
I've been waiting for it. So I want at Phil, but like some guy's been sitting on at Phil for basically my entire, I found out yesterday, 13 years on Twitter, which is probably 12 too long, but the dude has been squatting on at Phil. He retweets just enough that I can't get the handle.
You're an Emmy Award winner. I mean, flash a couple of greens to him. He might acquiesce to your demands of taking over his account.
Elon, listen to me. I want at Phil. If you just do one thing with that site, just give me at Phil.
Sounds good. And, I love the Razor Ramon bit. I mean, I think you just hang on to that even if you have the ability to get the at Phil thing. But that's fun. Razor Ramon, rest in peace, Scott Hall. Now, you and I were bound to meet. You don't get a couple of kids from Queens that happen to share the same love and misery for a certain professional baseball team. We won't talk about that because this is a soccer pod. So it was only a matter of time before two kids from Queens met. And I always love getting to know the guests who come on there. Childhood and how they grew up obviously has an impact on where they are in life. Talk to us about life growing up in New York City, my man.
It was awesome. I mean, you know this as well as everyone else, right? Like I mean, it's different, right? Growing up in the city as opposed to like the suburbs. I never wanted to be a suburban kid. Taking public buses at 14 years old, trying to get to school. I wouldn't have it any other way, man. Like it was awesome. I just walking everywhere is just the way to go. Being exposed to as many different cultures and things growing up as a kid. I mean, I did the same things you did, everyone else did, right? Like Little League, CYO, basketball, soccer, all that sort of thing. Parents drove the minivan. But I mean, how great is it that within a 30-minute commute, right? 5-minute walk, 25-minute train is the best city in the world. It was awesome. I wouldn't give it up for anything. Unfortunately we're not there anymore. That's life. I mean, it's expensive. But like it's the best. It definitely shapes who you are, and it's a badge of honor that I didn't realize you carry with you when you leave. And it kind of it's sort of like it gives you like scabs and scars that other people sort of like immediately respect, which is cool.
I think it's also the cadence, the delivery, the abruptness of the way we communicate as well. It's just a matter of like getting things like off the top of your mind as quick as possible because time is money. You got to catch a train. You got to be somewhere. The public transportation aspect of it is key because if you miss your train, it could be another half hour to 45 minutes before you get home, and nobody wants that getting stuck in a sardine can for the most part isn't fun anyway. And obviously being late isn't cool. But after being away from it for so long, I miss it too. We don't walk at all in LA. I used to laugh, and I'm sure you do too, at people who would look at their pedometers and go, oh, I made my 10,000 steps today. To me, that was comical. You and I hit that on the way to the subway in the morning.
I tell everyone there's 7,000 steps a day I miss just by driving. Like, I didn't own a car until I was 25. And when you tell people that, the concept of not owning a car is like crazy to them. They had driver's license at 16, right? We don't get our license until 18, right? But I mean, obviously you don't need it, right? You go to college, you move out, you land in an apartment, then you're in the subway system. You never need a car. So I didn't own a car until I was in my 20s. And all of that, like, I don't understand car culture. I don't know how you do it every day in LA sitting in traffic. To your point, yeah, there is 7,000 steps a day that I miss just from not wandering around. The great wander is what I call it. You get out of the train, you just wander around. I mean, imagine wandering around the suburbs. Like, what does that even mean? Like, I don't get it. I don't understand. How do these places, there's no diners open? Like you and I talk about diners like they're institutions, they're 24-hour institutions, right? Like, these places close on Mondays, close at 2 p.m. Like, how does that exist? I don't understand it.
Flagship Diner on Queens Boulevard, not too far from the Kew Gardens train stop, is where a relative of mine used to manage the shop. Nothing like going in there at 2 a.m., a plate for $10 that would dwarf anything you'd ever have at Thanksgiving, and the food was always good and it was always fresh. God, I'll
shout out the North Shore Diner. I'll shout out North Shore, right on the corner of Francis Lewis and Northern Boulevard.
Oh, my God. My cousin used to go speed racing around that neck of the woods on Franny Lou.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. We could talk about.
I mean, we can do this for hours, but no one wants to listen to this.
No, nobody wants to hear about two knucklehead New Yorkers talking about the good old times growing up. So you obviously mentioned you played CYO. For those that don't know, Catholic Youth Organization. That's sports, baseball, basketball, whatever the case may be. So you obviously played sports. What made you think, or at what point did you realize that you were going to be involved in sports media? What led you to that path as far as a career choice?
So I'm a unique situation, right? Like, I used to, as a kid, grow up and I would get up early in the morning before school and watch the full Sports Center. Like, I wanted to watch from open to close, right? I was enamored with the idea of highlights, highlight production, all of that stuff. The high school that I went to, now you mentioned it, Catholic, right? It wasn't like you grew up in X town, so you went to that high, like I was fortunate. I was in the Catholic school system. So the school that I picked, the sole reason I went there was because it had a TV production. It had a television studio. So I've known what I wanted to do for the rest of my life since I was 13 years old, which is wild. Like, it's a wild concept for anyone to sort of understand. So quite literally from my freshman year of high school, I knew exactly what I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
I mean, that's awesome. And I would assume from high school going into college, you probably did the same thing, choosing a school that had that type of major, right?
Yeah. So if I had to do it all over again, I'd pick a different one, right? Like, I went to Marist College, and I'll throw Marist under the bus here. They told me that they were the exact. So Syracuse University is the best and the brightest, right, for TV production. Syracuse University resumes go in one pile, everyone else goes in the other one. So Marist told me that they were on par with Syracuse, and that they had the same internships, all that stuff, and it wasn't the same. It just wasn't the same. So everything I got on my own. I grinded. Everything in this job, everything is experience anyway. So got all my own internships, did everything all myself. It's been laser focused since I was 14, which is like, it's psychopath stuff, probably.
I wouldn't call it psychopath stuff. Like you, I was buried reading like Street and Smiths and Beckett's and poring over stats of players in college, whether it be at Syracuse or my alma mater, Indiana University, Sports Center. Dick Vitale was a hero. What kid would look up to Dick Vitale when you've got people like the Fab Five playing college hoops? So no, you and I share that same bit of insanity, which is why you and I get along.
I mean, I grew up writing I remember writing in high school sort of what I want to be when I grow up. And I wrote about being the next Marv Albert. which this was before, we knew that he was biting people. So like I remember, like, that's the sportscaster world is something I've always wanted to do. I remembered that I went to audition for that ESPN reality show, whatever the heck they called it back then. I remember being at ESPN, the restaurant where it was, and trying to fight your way through the rounds and nonsense. And Stuart Scott was there, and like it was wild. It was, it's been that way my entire life.
So you mentioned going out for those shows. Like, what was like the first, like, what were some of the first couple of jobs or internships you had the minute you left Marist?
So I interned at the Fan, right? WFAN, first time, long time, 660, right? Like everyone else, I was one of the overnight interns for Joe Beningo, which is a name like you and I only know. I interned with Spectrum Cable, well, Time Warner back then. I interned at my first job was at Good Day New York at Fox 5, right out of college. And then right after that, I got a call from the Worldwide Leader, from ESPN.
So there are a lot of people that are probably going to be watching this who either themselves aspire to get into sports media, or they might have kids or nieces and nephews that want to do it. Obviously, you and I both know getting started in this business is a grind. And there are a lot of sleepless nights where there is no money to be made. But obviously, we do it for passion. And when you're operating under passion, you're going to find ways to do things. How long would you say it took before you really got to a position where you're like, all right, I'm actually making a living in sports comfortably, or at least at the very least making a living?
Well, so I took the firefighter test, and I said, I'm going to give myself until the firefighters called me, and I'm going to figure it out, right? The FDNY test. And they called me when I was at ABC News, and I was in there, and I was like, all right, I'm going to pass on it now because I'm kind of working my way through the system. It's just, I've freelanced a lot, because this industry too, it's changed so much in the last 20 years. So when have I felt comfortable? I don't know. I mean, like, you just kind of grind your way. Like, I think part of it is sort of reaching out and going places that you fit. I think that's the most important thing. I'm not sure. I don't know if comfort has ever been sort of there, if I'm honest with you. But I think finding a place that you fit at is the most important thing, and respect you, most importantly too.
You got the nod winning an Emmy. That is no small feat. That is, I mean, the accolade of accolades when it comes to, this crazy world and this crazy business that we're in. Can you talk to us about where it was that you were, what it was that won the award? Talk to us about what led up to that Emmy win.
So it's really a story about, like, I've been laid off twice from jobs, right? Like, there's nothing, you and I love sports, right? And you always hear players talk about the first time they were traded, how it sort of like shakes their world. Same thing about getting, once you get laid off. Once you get laid off once, like, you're officially numb to it, right? Because you realize how little control you have in this entire process. So pandemic hit, right? Like, the world's flipped over its head twice. I was furloughed, and the world went online, right? So NBC Washington was on the forefront of this movement, this online movement, and I've been editing for the last 12 years because you have to. That's part of the grind and adapting. So NBC Washington reached out. They needed some freelance editors. I was home, and I could make my schedule. So I picked up a job for them. Nicholas Backstrom, who's one of the Washington Capitals' most iconic players, was celebrating his 1,000th game, which is a big milestone in the NHL. We did one of those Zoom chat sort of party, this is your life things that were popular in 2020. I edited the whole thing together. We got nominated and we won. It was the most surreal sort of, that was the one day I allowed myself to be happy. You know what I mean? Like, be like, I accomplished something. And then I immediately at the hotel bar that night spilled blue cheese on my shirt. So I gave myself like 2 hours before I was humbled again by spilling blue cheese. It's
I mean,
cool. It's awesome. I consider that sort of the culmination of, if that's the highest point, that's great. Like I win. That's cool. You know?
but if the lowest point of it is just spilling blue cheese on yourself, then you're doing all right in this world, my friend.
I'm trying. I'm trying every day,
Well, that's what we all got to do, regardless of what profession we're in, is grind. And the profession that brought you and I, or at least the sport that brought you and I together, is this wonderful and wacky world of indoor soccer. Talk to us about how this arrived in front of your doorstep.
When I got hired about 5 years ago, my family moved upstate from Queens. I got a job with the local AHL hockey team that sort of acquired an indoor team. The Syracuse Silver Knights moved to Utica, became Utica City FC. And that's where I was working with the team for 2 years up until the pandemic. And then these last couple of years, I've been lucky enough to work with the league. They sort of brought me on to help do some video stuff for them. So it's indoor soccer is like, and we tell everybody this, right? Just give it a chance. Just watch it once. When you watch it once, there's a very good chance you're going to come back. It's it's chaotic, it's frantic. It's just a wonderful sort of car crash of a sport. That is it's super fun to watch. And that's the only way I can describe it. And if I can help with my little bits, I'm happy to do that.
It's exactly why I'm here as well. Now,
Yeah.
Were you involved or interested in all at the sport, whether it be an indoor and outdoor level, prior to Utica City?
Yeah. So when I was with ESPN, I was on the staff that did the 06 World Cup. We were in Bristol, so we did halftimes, post games, things like that, hanging out with people like Julie Fowley, Eric Ronaldo. Who else was hanging around? Giorgio Canaglia, the old, New York Cosmo. I'm sure there are other people floating around. I have a ball somewhere with everyone's signature on it. That was my first sort of I solidify this is soccer. This is a sport for me. I grew up a baseball fan, right? Like baseball has been in my life forever. But after that 06 World Cup, I was like, soccer's, we watched World Cups, right? Like you and I probably watched 94, 98, 2002 didn't watch because I was overnight. But 06 kind of solidified it. And that's how I got to the sport. And then like most people, you go to Europe for your teams, right? So I chose Newcastle for arbitrary reasons, the beer. And
yes.
But every year that followed I've been to Newcastle. I've been twice. Some of my, closest friends I met through the team, but every year that keeps I get a little bit more domestic with my rooting interests.
100%. You support your local team. I mean, you're not exactly traveling to the north of England anytime soon by car, being all the way up in Utica.
No.
Obviously, your Newcastle.
Same climates, though.
Yeah, seriously. Same exact beautiful sunny and warm weather.
I mean, what's your entry point into soccer?
So I'm the son of Eastern European immigrants. Yeah. My mom's side moved to New York from Romania. My dad's side moved to Germany to Munich. And so I'm going back and forth from New York to Munich every year of my life. Because that's where my dad's sister was. It's where my only first cousin was. So I got integrated to it in 1990 when West Germany beat Argentina in the World Cup. Andreas Brehme. So I got into it then. 94 came out, solidified it. And then in that very year, I moved to Germany. I did 8th grade in all high school in Frankfurt. So soccer's been in my blood and in my DNA forever. But like you, my first love of anything sports related was these lovable losers right here that continue to
LFGM.
Yeah, it's just I'm tired of the acronym standing for my entire team sucks. Anyway, but that's besides the point. So Utica City, obviously you got your start. Now, what I've noticed from Utica City, and you and I had talked about this off camera, the commercials advertising the games that Utica will post on social media were fabulous. Very reminiscent of the This Is Sports Center commercials. And if I'm not mistaken, you, my friend, were the architect of that amazing content.
Yes. Yeah. So what we wanted to, my sort of remit, right, was to get people in the building to watch the team. So we did, you can find them out there too. We would poke, with wrestling backgrounds, right? We were trying to poke bears. I remember I had Logan Roberts and Andrew Coughlin drawing Seawolves, right? Because we were playing the Orlando Seawolves. And I was like, what's a Seawolf? You have to draw this for us. Any sort of content that we can kind of draw up interest. The Milwaukee Wave came that first season, and we were, they were, super good. And Utica were pretty good. So we declared Utica Club like the official beer of that day, and we were smashing Milwaukee Wave, Milwaukee's best cans. So that we were kind of grinding there, and then myself and a couple other people in the office, we decided to roll out and try the This Is Sports Center thing. We're not the first. We won't be the last, right? And our first commercials were with Andrew Coughlin, sort of in the pro shop and trying to answer the phone and goalie gloves. And we thought we hit something. And then we would just kind of roll with it, try to come up with new episodes each week. We had all the players involved. We had Joey Tavernisi doing his Dwayne Wade in the highlight room. My favorite one, and probably the best one we ever did, was we had Tommy Tanner, the GM of Utica, sort of recruiting players, saying that sometimes you have to stretch the truth. And then we had all the Brazilian guys on the team wear I Love New York t-shirts, Statue of Liberty hats. It's on there. It's on their YouTube page. That was probably the best one we've done.
The one where Biggsy's doing the play-by-play on the date, I enjoyed. Yeah. I enjoyed that. I went down a rabbit hole several months ago where I came across one, and then I just sat and I kept looking, and then I just went down this rabbit hole. Next thing you know, I wasted like an hour of my life, but it wasn't a waste because it was done in all good, clean fun. I learned so much, and I'm constantly looking at. I mean, the social media aspect that was created by you over at Utica City, fantastic, and the content that you now create within Major Arena Soccer League, we'll get to the show in just a minute, is also fantastic. Talk to the people that might not know you other than from being on the show under review. Talk to the listeners out there about your total involvement within the Major Arena Soccer League.
Content, all content, content, right? Like we want the MASL to be on par with all the other sports, right? And to sort of, we want to hit tent poles that every other sports league has, highlights, social media presence, sort of the weeks, right? Goals of the week, saves of the week. This league craves it, needs it. And frankly, that's, why I'm around, is to deliver that, is because it's such a great sport visually too. These goals are out of control. There's spectacular goals every week. So it's just to put it on par, with every other sports league that you see. Same thing with MASL Monday, right? Our podcast, we want a review show. We want, a place where people can get news and information because the league deserves it, honestly. And then under review, I'll segue it for you. Under review is listen, soccer, the one common thing about soccer is critiquing referees, right? And my work, I've done some work with MLS, and I continue to work with them with instant replay, their referee review show. So it just made sense to sort of move it to our world. Ryan Sigich, the head of officials for MASL, that first call was a little awkward, when I pitched the idea to him. But he's been a great sport, and he's taken it everywhere it needs to go is because of him, right? Being honest and open about the decisions in the league. And honestly, sort of educating people on the difference between outdoor and indoor. And that was one of the first things he taught me, was that there are slight differences to the rules. And sort of the one example I'll give is that, the boots on the indoor shoes don't have spikes. So there's a little bit more nuance. So when you see a player's foot come down on another player, there's no spikes there, right? So it doesn't raised to the same levels as the outdoor game. So that's the show, right? It's to educate the difference, because all of our notions are the outdoor rules, and then it's, you know, sort of to give some insight on the rules. And it's Ryan's show, man. I'm just there to play straw man.
It's a great show. I've learned a great deal from it. A lot of people have learned a great deal from it. And if you look at the numbers between MASL Mondays and obviously this, I mean, you get the highest views out of all three fairly consistently. So if we're going to have this friendly rivalry between whose show is best, you're obviously winning in that perspective. But it's great because it's shorter form content and there's a lot to be learned on there. And I love the transparency of things and the honesty. Like, okay, we missed that call. That should have been done another way. And it's a great educational tool, not just for guys like me and you and fans, but for other referees that are coming in new to this game as well. Because like you said, the difference between outdoor and indoor is palpable. And some of these people might have all the experience outdoor, coming in indoor. They got stuff to learn too.
Yeah, that's what we want to do. We want to educate, you know, and all the credit goes to Ryan, because he's the honest, you know, about the calls. You know, we debate which ones we use too, you know, sometimes, but it's his show, man, you know, and all the credit goes to him.
Actually, you bring up,
it's a lot of fun doing. Like I said, man, the common language is yelling about referees. Doesn't matter where you are. You're yelling about referees.
Always. Doesn't matter. Or umpires, whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
What goes into the selection of the calls? Like, do you have what's the system? What format do you use? Like, how do you know what to put on the show?
So we both watch all the games, you know, and he does his referee analysis per game. You know, we look at every review as well. And then we just kind of text during the week, you know. We try to pick plays that have some editorial value in them too. This, you know, this goal was eventually led to the game winner. We have to do this one. But then there's ones too that are purely for education. You know, like we had one that was a play that was near the boards, and I forgot where it was, but you know, we did it because it was innocuous tackle, but it was near the boards. So that upgrades, you know, the analysis in the referee's mind, you know? So, you know, that's kind of the process. We look at everything. And it's mostly driven by him. But I get a few every once in a while, depending on what we see. And you guys, you broadcasters, you shout us out basically every game, you know, tagging plays for us.
We're required to. But honestly, I love it. I mean, I always love giving you and Ryan a shout out, because I personally have gotten a great deal from it, and I know a lot of people have as well. And again, the proof's in the numbers. It's the most popular show out of all the three. And speaking of shows, you're obviously involved in production, content creation. You've worked in MLS, NHL Network, a bunch of other amazing places, Major League Baseball. What kind of new shows do you have in the pipeline, or is there anything that you could kind of, you know, hint at? Any other fun things?
Well, I would love to do a debate show. That's next. I would love to take. That's our next land. You know, I think it's a take show. I think that's what I want to do next. You want to do it right? Let's do 5 minutes. You want to do 5 minutes of a take show now?
I mean, yeah. Let's freestyle. Let's go for it.
Who's your MVP this year?
Frank Tayu.
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't know about that immediately. I think Frank's in the conversation. I think Boris Pardo's in the conversation as well. I think Nick Pereira's in the conversation, but I strongly believe if you do not make the playoffs, you cannot be the MVP. So I think if they make the playoffs, the Stars, I think Nick Pereira might eke out Frank. But I think, you know, that's sort of it definitely comes from the West. But I think that Pereira sort of Stars playoff. That's where we're sitting at.
Well, yeah, that would be the key component. I mean, postseason. Without postseason, it doesn't matter. Otherwise, you'd have the likes of a Shohei Ohtani getting MVP all the darn time, regardless. Okay, that's fine. But I'll tell you,
who's coming out of the East?
What's that?
Who's coming out of the East?
As far as what? As an MVP?
No. As to the Newmies.
Well, that's a really good question, because now that's going to alienate me from a lot of people, and I'm trying to win over the fan bases.
Yeah.
At this point,
is our take show.
It's anybody's game.
It really is.
Just if you look at it, right, everybody can win at home in the East. But the key factor is nobody can really win on the road. Nobody has a solid road record. So a lot of what it happens is going to be with seeding and who might potentially get the mini game as well. I think whoever gets that's the person that's going to advance. Whether it be Baltimore, whether it be Milwaukee, Florida's still in the conversation. I mean, you've got Kansas City knocking on those doors. I mean, it's really anybody's game out there. I mean, it's not like the West where San Diego's going to be a favorite, a very heavy favorite. On the East Coast, it could be anybody. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a Kansas City. And I also wouldn't be shocked if it was a Florida or a Milwaukee. That's a tough call to make because everything is just so compressed. It is, without a doubt, the most competitive because it's anybody's ball game. In the West, we kind of already have our outliers. San Diego, Chihuahua, us, Mesquite, and to a certain extent, Monterey as well.
I think Monterey is going to sneak into that conversation. I'm going to throw Mesquite out. I don't think Mesquite's going to do enough for me to do anything, right? I think they're going to make the playoffs. I think that's a great season for them. I don't think they have any shot coming out of the West. The Eastern team that I'm the most I have most stock in for this year is Baltimore. Because I think if they get that 2 seed, they're a totally different team at home. And when they get that home game, I think they can really dominate those games. I don't love Kansas City. I don't think they've got the juice. I think Milwaukee might be too injured right now. So I'm looking at Baltimore to come out of the East.
Okay. So then who do you got coming out of the West?
It's San Diego's until somebody proves me otherwise. Like, honestly, they're the deepest team in the league. I think that, Chihuahua at home is a different proposition. I think Empire is as deep as San Diego, and Empire don't play differently against San Diego. Every team tries to raise their game against San Diego. Then they start doing things they're not comfortable with, and then they blow it, right? Like this is standard operating procedure against the Sockers. I think the Empire know how to play their game against San Diego, right? And they're not afraid of them. But I don't see it's San Diego's crown until somebody takes it from them. And I worry about essentially that secondary scoring from Empire. Because that's the problem with San Diego. They'll score from everything. It's not just Craig, right? It's not just Charlie Galasso or Escoto, who's my favorite player on that team. They can literally be like Ismael Rojas has bangers the last 3 weeks, right? And it's just like they come from everywhere.
Yeah. Even the rookie, Luis Perez, got himself involved. Mojica down in Chihuahua. No doubt. I mean, yes, they are a tough team. They're no doubt going to win the Supporter Shield. And, more than likely they have one of the best opportunities coming out of the West. But it's sports. Well, we don't know what's going to happen. But the San Diego-Baltimore game would obviously harken back to the days of the missile, days where a lot of people are very fond of, days in which people hope come back, and as do we too in terms of the crowds. If you got a firing on all cylinders San Diego soccer team, along with a firing on all cylinders Baltimore Blast team, who's your take and your pick there?
Oh, so it would be San Diego, right? Because I think Baltimore outside of CQ is a different team. I think they're at home, they're a superpower, right? And out of there, they're Clark Kent. They're very normal. That win in Kansas City was, it was a great win for them, but it said more about the comments than it did about Baltimore, in my opinion. They're just Kansas City don't have it. So I think the winner's coming out west. Like that's for sure, right? It's just a matter of who can get out of the West.
Okay.
For sure. How do we do? How is our debate show?
I think
guess
that
we'll
was
find
fun.
out, right?
I mean, we kind of transitioned into what I wanted to do anyway. So, I mean, the debate show worked because we were going to talk about the league and the season.
That's their tape. We'll just send it to JP. We'll just cut
I like it.
Send.
All right. So then let me ask you this. Who do you pick the debate shows amongst who? Like, are we picking fans? Are we picking broadcasters?
No, it's going to be
versus broadcaster?
It's got to be broadcaster. It's got to be us. We've had, on MASL Monday, we've had a lot of the broadcasters on. It's been wonderful, right? And I've gotten to know them and meet them for the first time, right? And everybody brings not only their point of view, right? But we're all fans of the league, right? And we can all just, like, my favorite part is sort of, being like, deep dive into Mesquite, and we can talk to you. We can talk to Reimer. We can talk to, Andrew Harvey out in Tacoma, right? And it's like boom, boom, boom. Like we can just go with it. I think it's a broadcaster vehicle.
I love it. Be also cool to have like a show like the women of the MASL, because we have some very talented women in this league as well, between Lux and Melissa May and obviously Panda. That would be cool to get some shows with them involved as well. Just throw them a 2 cents in.
Listen, I mean, it's I would love to do more shows without question,
Yeah, no doubt. The more content, the better. Anything that can get this message of the league and the sport out to others would be great. Now, we're already 35 or so minutes into this, which, I mean, you and I, we both
could
have
do this for another 35 if you really asked.
We could talk for hours about anything and everything. Like, I'd even love to show you my wrestling belt collection, but that's for another time. I guess if I, just to end things out, if, is there anything, final thoughts, words you wanted to say to people out there listening?
I mean, thank you for watching our content. Continue to watch our content. Continue to comment. Right. I'm not a big Facebook person. I know most of the league lives on Facebook, but continue just watching our stuff and supporting the league, because that's what we need. We need it to grow. We need the fan base who have stuck with us through YouTube, through Twitch, through, all of the, the ebbs and flows of the league. Thank you for your support and just keep on watching. And I mean, there's my handle right there on Twitter. If anyone has any ideas on what they want to do, shoot me a note. What's the worst thing that happens, right?
That you have a conversation in depth with them for hours on end, like you and I end up getting stuck in. That's the worst thing, and that's honestly the best thing that could possibly happen. Yeah. It's always fun to chat with you, Phil. Again, I certainly appreciate your time. You're 3 hours ahead of me, so I'll let you get back to doing your thing. Much love. And folks, thank you for tuning into the show. This has been MASL Insider. We'll be back again next week with another player of the Major Arena Soccer League. Philly, we out.
Phil Squared.
Phil Squared. I like that. All right.